Lando, sorry to see you here. It must be so frustrating. What can you tell us about what happened on your side?
Not a huge amount, honestly. Just an issue that's not letting us even start the car. Yeah, that's basically it. That's all I know for now. I think they're still trying to investigate what is actually happening or what's going on and why it's not working as it should. But of course, frustrating to come such a long way, put in a lot of effort, not just for me, but the whole team, and not even start a race. So disappointing.
Oscar, must be so frustrating, especially after last weekend. What can you tell us about what happened on your side?
It was an electrical problem on the power unit, different to Lando's. So yeah, just very unfortunate to both have issues, but we don't fully know any more than that at this point. So yeah, obviously disappointing.
Yeah, both cars being affected. How do you move forward from this one? It's a tough one to take, isn't it?
I think try and learn what we can by watching the race, and yeah, then after that, yeah, just trying to do as much work as we can before Japan. You know, I think obviously the problems today have been annoying, but I think besides that, we know we've got work to do to find more performance, so that's what we'll try and focus on.
The Chinese Grand Prix left something much more worrying for McLaren than a simple discrete result. The statements of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri reveal that within the team there is a real concern about the performance of the car and whether the current project can maintain the level that recently led them to success. The Chinese Grand Prix should simply be the second real test to measure the level of each team at the start of the season. After the premiere of the championship in Australia, many thought that Shanghai was going to confirm the competitive order of the grid and, above all, check if McLaren could maintain the level that had led it to become one of the strongest teams in Formula One recently. The memory of its promotion was still very recent, because the British team had managed to regain prominence with a brilliant technical development that led it to win the Constructors' Championship again after more than 2 decades. With that context, the expectations surrounding the team were enormous. McLaren had not only proven to have one of the most competitive cars on the grid, but also had one of the strongest driver lineups in the championship. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Both had demonstrated an extraordinary ability to extract performance from the car in different circumstances, which made the team a dangerous rival for anyone. But precisely for that reason, what happened over the weekend in China began to set off the first alarm bells. The Shanghai circuit has always been a particularly demanding setting for Formula One teams. It is a track that combines long straights with technical curves that require aerodynamic stability, good tire management, and a perfect balance between top speed and downforce. In addition, the recent resurfacing of the circuit noticeably changed the grip conditions, forcing the teams to adapt quickly with just one practice session before the competitive sessions due to the sprint format of the weekend. This format, which significantly reduces preparation time, often generates surprises because any small error in the car's configuration can drag on throughout the weekend. And that was exactly what started to happen with McLaren. From the first moments of activity on the track, it began to be perceived that the car's behavior was not as solid as the team expected. Although the times were not necessarily disastrous, there were signs that something was not quite right in the overall balance of the car. Engineers worked hard to find a setup that would allow Norris and Piastri to feel comfortable in the car, but the problem seemed more complex than expected. In certain sectors of the circuit, the car was competitive, while in others it simply did not have the necessary grip to keep up with the teams that were leading the sessions. That inconsistency is precisely one of the worst possible scenarios in Formula One, because it means that the car's performance depends too much on specific conditions that cannot always be controlled. As the weekend progressed, the situation began to become more evident. Other teams like Ferrari and Mercedes seemed to quickly find a clearer performance window, while McLaren continued to struggle to understand exactly what was limiting its car's potential. It wasn't a huge difference in terms of lap time, but in such a competitive championship, even a few tenths can completely change the outlook of a race. For a team that had dominated much of the previous season, these types of signs could not be ignored. McLaren had built its recent success on the basis of an extremely balanced car, capable of performing well on different types of circuits. However, what was happening in Shanghai suggested that this balance might not be as solid as it seemed. Meanwhile, within the team, a relatively calm public discourse was maintained. The engineers insisted that it was still early in the weekend and that there was room to improve the car before the decisive sessions. But the drivers, who are the ones who really feel the behavior of the car on the track, began to notice that the performance was not up to par with expectations. And that was the moment when the situation began to change. Because when drivers begin to express doubts about the car's behavior, it usually means that the problems are not simply fine-tuning or specific configuration. It means that there is something deeper that limits the car's potential. The problem is that in modern Formula One there is not always time for quick solutions. The calendar moves quickly and each Grand Prix represents a critical opportunity to score points in the championship. After China, the season continues with a series of races that will test the team's ability to react to any technical difficulties. Therefore, what seemed like simply a difficult weekend for McLaren began to transform into something more disturbing. Because beyond the results on the track, the real impact came when Norris and Piastri finally talked about what they had experienced inside the car. And it was at that moment when the words of both drivers began to reveal something that until then had only been suspected within the team. The McLaren was not working as it should, and the problem could be much more serious than it seemed at first. Driver statements are usually one of the clearest indicators of what is really happening within a Formula One team. Engineers can analyze data, strategists can review simulations, and managers can maintain a cautious discourse before the media, but when drivers speak after getting out of the car, they often let out very revealing signals about the true state of the project. And that was exactly what happened after the Chinese Grand Prix with McLaren. As the weekend ended in Shanghai, both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri faced questions from the press with a candor that surprised even within the team itself. It was not a speech full of excuses, nor was it an attempt to justify a specific result. What they conveyed was something different. A feeling that the car had clear limitations that were preventing it from competing at the level the team expected. In Norris' case, his words reflected obvious frustration with the car's behavior throughout the weekend. The Briton explained that the car had moments when it seemed competitive, but that competitiveness disappeared in certain areas of the circuit. That type of inconsistency is one of the most difficult problems to solve in Formula One, because it means that the car does not have a stable operating window. For a driver, that translates into a lack of confidence when attacking corners and the inability to maintain a constant pace for a full lap. Norris hinted that the team still doesn't fully understand why the car behaves the way it does. And that is precisely the type of comment that most worries any team. When the driver feels that the car has limitations but the team still does not have a clear explanation, it means that the problem may be related to fundamental aspects of the design or aerodynamic balance of the car. For his part, Oscar Piastri was even more direct in describing what he had experienced over the weekend. The Australian spoke openly about the lack of grip the car had in certain phases of the lap. As he explained, there were times when it was simply not possible to find more performance, because the car did not generate the level of grip necessary to keep up with the rivals. These statements are especially important because pilots are rarely so explicit when it comes to pointing out technical limitations. Normally, public discourse is kept much more controlled to avoid generating additional pressure within the team. But in this case, both Norris and Piastri agreed to point out the same problem. The car was not offering the expected performance on a circuit that should allow McLaren to fight for more competitive positions. The impact within the team was immediate. When two drivers with different driving styles come to similar conclusions about the car's behavior, engineers know that the problem cannot simply be attributed to personal preference or a matter of adaptation to the car. It means there is a real limitation on the car's performance that affects both sides of the garage. This is especially worrying for McLaren because the team had opted for a very aggressive approach in the development of its car. This season's car was designed as a deep evolution of the previous model, with significant modifications in multiple areas to try to maximize performance from the start of the championship. That type of development philosophy has obvious advantages when it works correctly, because it allows you to find significant improvements in performance. But it also involves significant risks. When aggressive design changes are introduced, there is a possibility that some aspects of the car's behavior will become more difficult to control or understand. And that is precisely the doubt that is beginning to appear within the McLaren environment. Norris and Piastri's words have raised an uncomfortable question. Is the team simply facing a specific configuration problem, or does the car have a structural weakness that they have not yet fully identified? The recent history of Formula One shows that these types of situations can set the course of an entire season. In such a tight championship, wasting time trying to understand a technical problem can mean falling behind rivals who continue to evolve their cars race after race. Furthermore, the competitive pressure on the current grid is enormous. Teams like Ferrari, Mercedes, or Red Bull have the technical capacity and resources necessary to constantly introduce improvements. If McLaren fails to react quickly, the margin it had over some rivals could disappear in a few races. That is why Norris and Piastri's statements have had such a strong impact within the team. This is not simply a specific criticism of the car's performance on a specific circuit. What is really worrying is that both drivers have pointed out limitations that could indicate a deeper problem within the development of the car. And if that suspicion is confirmed, McLaren could face a very delicate situation. Because in modern Formula One, it is not enough to have a fast car at certain times. To fight for championships, a team needs a car capable of performing consistently on any type of circuit. The big question now is whether McLaren will be able to quickly find a solution to these limitations, or whether the Chinese Grand Prix will be remembered as the moment when the first cracks began to appear in one of the most promising projects on the grid. What happened at the Chinese Grand Prix left something much more important than a simple result within the season. What really set off alarm bells at McLaren was not only the performance of the car during the weekend, but the message left by the statements of its two drivers. When Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri agree in pointing out the same limitations of the car, the team knows that it is facing a situation that it cannot ignore. McLaren is coming from a very special stage in Formula One. After years of trying to return to the top, the team managed to rebuild itself with a solid technical project that allowed it to once again compete for championships and become one of the strongest rivals on the grid. This growth was not a coincidence. It was the result of constant development, correct technical decisions, and a sports structure that knew how to find the right path. Norris and Piastri's words after China should not be interpreted simply as frustration over a difficult weekend. Rather, they reflect something that often happens within Formula One teams. The moment in which the drivers begin to detect limits in the car that have not yet been solved from the technical side. And when those limits appear, the development of the car becomes a race against time. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.